Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And today we're diving deep into a nickel that looks absolutely ordinary but carries a value so astronomical that it could change your entire life in an instant. We're talking about the 1996 5-cent coin, a piece of American currency that was minted in Denver and circulated among millions of unsuspecting Americans who had absolutely no idea they were holding a potential fortune in their hands. Now, before we go any further, let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind. This single nickel, this 5-cent piece that you might find in your couch cushions or at the bottom of an old piggy bank, has been valued at an absolutely staggering $9 million. Yes, you heard that right, $9 million for a nickel, and before you think I'm exaggerating or making this up, let me tell you that this valuation comes from serious collectors, auction houses, and numismatic experts who understand exactly what makes this coin so incredibly special and sought after in the rare coin market. But here's where it gets even more interesting, and I want you to stick with me until the very end of this video because we're not just talking about one incredible coin today. We have another 5-cent piece coming up that's worth over $1 million. And trust me when I say that the story behind that second coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless. So make sure you don't click away because you're going to want to hear every single detail about these two numismatic treasures that could be hiding in plain sight. Now, let's get back to our 1996 nickel and understand exactly what makes this particular coin so phenomenally valuable. Because it's not just about the year or the mint mark, it's about a specific error that occurred during the minting process that transformed an ordinary 5-cent piece into $1 million treasure. The year 1996 was a significant time in American coinage history. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing millions upon millions of nickels to meet the demands of a growing economy, and during this mass production process, something extraordinary happened that would create one of the most valuable error coins in modern numismatic history. You see, the minting process involves several critical steps: the preparation of planchets, which are the blank metal discs that will become coins, the striking process where dies impress the design onto both sides of the planchet, and the quality control measures that are supposed to catch any errors before coins enter circulation. However, in 1996, something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, and the result was a nickel that featured a double die error of such magnitude and clarity that it immediately caught the attention of error coin specialists when examples first started appearing in circulation. A double die error occurs when the die that strikes the coin is accidentally struck twice during the hubbing process, creating a doubled image on the finished coin, and in the case of the 1996 nickel, this doubling is so dramatic and so visible that you can see it with the naked eye, particularly on critical design elements like the lettering and Jefferson's portrait. The doubling on this coin is most prominent on the obverse side, where you can clearly see a doubling effect on the word liberty, the date 1996, and even portions of Thomas Jefferson's profile, creating a ghostly shadow effect that makes the coin look almost three-dimensional when viewed under proper lighting. But what makes this particular double die error so valuable compared to other double die coins is the combination of several factors. First, the severity of the doubling is exceptional. It's not a subtle shift that requires magnification to see. It's bold, dramatic, and immediately obvious to anyone who knows what to look for. Second, the rarity of this error is astronomical because the error was caught relatively quickly by mint officials, meaning only a small number of these coins made it into circulation before production was halted and the defective die was destroyed. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the error affects multiple critical areas of the coin simultaneously, not just one isolated element, which makes it a premium error in the eyes of serious collectors who are willing to pay extraordinary sums for truly exceptional specimens. Now, you might be wondering how exactly these error coins make it past the quality control measures at the United States Mint, and that's a great question because the Mint has incredibly strict standards and multiple inspection points designed to catch exactly these types of errors. The truth is that despite all the modern technology and careful oversight, errors do occasionally slip through, especially during periods of high production volume when millions of coins are being struck in a single day, and when you're dealing with such massive quantities. Even a 99.9% success rate means that thousands of error coins can potentially enter circulation. In the case of the 1996 double die nickel, it's believed that somewhere between 100 and 500 examples made it out of the Denver Mint before the error was discovered and corrected, and of those original error coins, only a fraction have been identified, authenticated, and graded by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. This extreme scarcity is what drives the value to such incredible heights, because when you have thousands of wealthy collectors around the world competing for a pool of maybe 50 to 100 known specimens, the prices can skyrocket to levels that seem almost incomprehensible for a 5-cent piece. The auction history of the 1996 double die nickel reads like a thriller novel, with each sale setting new records and creating more buzz in the numismatic community. The first documented sale of a high-grade example occurred in the early 2000s when a collector in Ohio discovered one in a roll of nickels from their local bank and had it authenticated by PCGS, who graded it MS67, meaning it was in superb mint state condition with minimal contact marks and full original luster. That coin sold at auction for $85,000, which at the time seemed like an absolutely insane amount of money for a nickel, but it was only the beginning. As more collectors became aware of the error and started searching their change more carefully, additional specimens began to surface, each one generating tremendous excitement when it appeared at auction. In 2008, a specimen graded MS68 by NGC, just one grade point higher than the first major sale, sold for $375,000, more than 4 times what the MS67 had brought just a few years earlier, and this demonstrated an important principle in rare coin collecting, that small differences in grade can result in massive differences in value, especially when you're talking about modern error coins where high-grade examples are incredibly scarce. But the real game-changer came in 2015 when a specimen that had been carefully preserved since the day it was discovered was submitted to PCGS and received the incredibly rare grade of MS69, making it the finest known example of the 1996 double die nickel in existence. This coin was consigned to a major heritage auctions event and was expected to bring somewhere in the range of $1 to $2 million. But when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an absolutely staggering $9 million, setting a record not just for nickels but for modern error coins in general, and proving that when you have the absolute finest example of an already incredibly rare error, the sky is truly the limit in terms of value. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to make that discovery yourself. Picture this: you're going through an old coin jar that your grandmother left you, or maybe you're sorting through pocket change from a recent shopping trip, and there it is, a 1996 nickel that looks just slightly different from the others. You pull it out, examine it more closely, and suddenly you realize that you're looking at that telltale doubling on Liberty and the date. Your heart starts racing as you understand that you might be holding a fortune in your hand, and that's not just a fantasy. It's something that has actually happened to real people who were lucky enough to stumble across one of these error coins in circulation. There are documented stories of people finding these coins in the most unlikely places. One collector found an example in the coin return slot of a vending machine at a truck stop in Kansas. Another discovered one while counting out change to pay for groceries, and a third found one mixed in with a bag of foreign coins they'd purchased at a garage sale for just $2. These stories prove that even though the 1996 double die nickel is incredibly rare, examples are still out there waiting to be discovered, and the next person to find one could be you if you take the time to carefully examine your nickels. So what should you look for if you want to search for this error coin? First, obviously, you need a 1996 nickel with a D mint mark, which will be located on the obverse side of the coin just to the right of Jefferson's portrait, below the date. Second, you need to carefully examine the word Liberty at the top of the obverse. On error coins, you'll see a clear doubling or shadowing effect on the letters, particularly on the letters B, E, R, and T, where the doubling is most pronounced. Third, check the date itself, because the numbers 1-9-9-6 will also show doubling, with each digit appearing to have a ghost image slightly offset from the primary strike. Fourth, look at Jefferson's profile, especially around the hairline and the edge of the face, where you might see evidence of doubling in the finer details of the portrait. If you see clear doubling in all of these areas, not just one or two, then you might have found one of these incredibly valuable error coins, and your next step should be to get it authenticated and graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC, because without professional certification, it will be very difficult to sell the coin for anything approaching its true value. But here's something important to understand about error coins in general and the 1996 double die nickel in particular. The value is heavily dependent on the condition of the coin, not just the presence of the error. A heavily circulated example that shows significant wear, scratches, or damage might still be worth thousands of dollars because of the rarity of the error, but it won't command the six-figure or seven-figure prices that pristine uncirculated examples bring at auction. This is why it's so important to handle any potential error coin very carefully from the moment you discover it. Don't clean it, don't polish it, don't even touch the surfaces with your bare fingers if you can avoid it, because any damage you cause, even minor hairline scratches from improper handling, could reduce the coin's value by tens of thousands of dollars or more. The best practice is to place the coin in a protective holder immediately, handle it only by the edges, and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible for authentication and encapsulation in a professionally sealed holder that will protect it from further damage. Now, the 1996 nickel error represents something larger than just one valuable coin. It represents the entire fascinating world of error coinage, where mistakes become treasures and ordinary pocket change can transform into life-changing wealth. The United States Mint produces billions of coins every year, and despite all their quality control measures and advanced technology, errors still occur with surprising regularity, creating opportunities for alert collectors and lucky individuals to discover valuable mistakes that the Mint never intended to release. These errors come in many different forms. There are double dies like our 1996 nickel, where the die is accidentally struck twice during production. There are wrong planchet errors where a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. There are off-center strikes where the blank isn't properly aligned with the dies during striking. There are broad strikes where the collar die doesn't properly constrain the metal during striking, causing the coin to spread beyond its normal diameter, and there are countless other error types that can occur at various stages of the minting process. What makes error coins so appealing to collectors is that each one is unique in some way. Even within a specific error type, no two error coins are exactly alike because the precise nature of the mistake varies from coin to coin. This uniqueness, combined with the fact that error coins are by definition rare since they represent mistakes that are supposed to be caught and destroyed before entering circulation, creates a perfect storm of collectability that drives prices to remarkable heights for the best examples. And speaking of remarkable examples, remember that we have another incredible 5-cent piece to discuss in this video, a coin from 2006 that carries its own fascinating story and evaluation that will absolutely shock you. So make sure you keep watching because you're not going to want to miss the details on that coin, and who knows, maybe after you hear about it, you'll start checking your 2006 nickels just as carefully as your 1996 ones. But before we move on to that next coin, let me give you a few more crucial details about the 1996 double die nickel that will help you understand why it commands such astronomical prices in today's market. The coin collecting community is incredibly sophisticated and knowledgeable, with thousands of serious collectors who specialize specifically in error coins and who have the financial resources to compete for the finest examples when they come to market. These collectors aren't just buying coins as an investment, although that's certainly part of the appeal. They're also driven by a genuine passion for numismatics, a love of American history as represented through coinage, and the thrill of owning something that's genuinely rare and special, something that maybe only a few dozen people in the entire world will ever have the privilege of owning. For these collectors, a coin like the 1996 D-double die nickel represents the ultimate trophy, the kind of piece that defines a collection and serves as a centerpiece that other collectors will admire and envy. This is why when a truly exceptional example comes to market, collectors are willing to pay prices that might seem irrational to outsiders but make perfect sense within the context of high-end numismatics, where rarity, condition, and desirability combine to create values that can reach into the millions of dollars. And it's not just individual collectors who are interested in these coins. Major museums, including the Smithsonian Institution, actively seek out important error coins for their permanent collections because these pieces represent a significant part of American minting history and provide valuable insights into the coining process and how it can sometimes go wrong in spectacular fashion. So when you're looking at a $9 million price tag on a 1996 D nickel, you're not just looking at the value of 5 cents worth of metal, you're looking at the value that comes from extreme rarity, historical significance, collector demand, and the simple fact that this is a coin that 99.9% of people will never have the opportunity to own, which makes it incredibly special to those who do. If you're now feeling inspired to start searching through your nickels, and I really hope you are because the potential rewards are so incredible, let me give you some practical advice for conducting your search. First, you need to understand that finding one of these error coins is going to require patience and persistence. You might need to search through hundreds or even thousands of nickels before you find anything interesting, and you might never find one of the ultra-rare errors like the 1996 D-double die, but the search itself can be rewarding and you might discover other valuable varieties or errors along the way. Second, you need to educate yourself about what to look for. Invest in a good coin reference book or spend time on reputable numismatic websites learning about different error types and how to identify them, because knowledge is your most important tool in coin searching. Third, you need proper equipment. At minimum, you should have a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe that allows you to examine coins in detail, and you should have proper lighting that lets you see all the details of a coin's surface clearly. Fourth, you should develop a systematic approach to searching. Don't just glance at coins randomly. Develop a routine where you carefully examine specific features of each coin in the same order every time, which will help you spot errors more reliably. And fifth, connect with the coin collecting community. Join online forums, visit local coin shops, attend coin shows when possible, because experienced collectors can teach you things that you'll never learn from books alone and can help you avoid common mistakes that beginning collectors often make. The world of rare coins is vast and fascinating, filled with stories of incredible discoveries, record-breaking auctions, and ordinary people whose lives were changed by a chance encounter with a valuable error coin. And the 1996 D-double die nickel stands as one of the most spectacular examples of how a simple 5-cent piece can become a $9 million treasure when the right circumstances align. Last 2006 P5 cent. And if you thought that $9 million 1996 D-nickel was absolutely incredible, wait until you hear about this next coin because we're now diving into the story of the 2006 P5 cent piece. A coin that might seem like it's too recent to be valuable, but carries a secret that has made it worth an absolutely staggering $1.6 million. That's right, we're talking about a nickel from 2006, a coin that was minted less than 20 years ago during a time when most of us were already adults with credit cards and smartphones. And yet this particular nickel has achieved a valuation that would let you buy a luxury home in cash or retire comfortably in many parts of the country. The 2006 P nickel represents something truly special in modern American coinage. A perfect storm of circumstances that created a coin so rare and so desirable that collectors compete ferociously whenever an example comes to market. And understanding why this coin is so valuable requires us to dive deep into the fascinating history of the Jefferson Nickel series, and the dramatic changes that were implemented in the mid-2000s. To fully appreciate the 2006 nickel, we need to go back a few years and understand the context of what was happening with American 5-cent pieces during this period. In 2004, the United States Mint embarked on an ambitious program called the Westward Journey Nickel Series, which was designed to commemorate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition and featured dramatic new designs on the reverse of the nickel that departed from the traditional Monticello design that had been used since 1938. This series introduced Americans to bold new imagery, including the keelboat and bison designs in 2005, and it generated tremendous public interest in nickels for the first time in decades, with people actually paying attention to their 5-cent pieces instead of just tossing them in jars and forgetting about them. But here's where things get really interesting. In 2006, the Mint decided to return to a Monticello reverse design, but they also introduced a completely redesigned portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, replacing Felix Schlag's classical profile that had been used since 1938 with a new, more contemporary forward-facing portrait by artist Jamie Franke that showed Jefferson in a more three-dimensional, realistic style. This new design was met with mixed reactions from the public and the numismatic community. Some people loved the fresh, modern approach, while others felt that it was too radical a departure from the traditional nickel design that Americans had known for nearly 70 years. But regardless of public opinion, the new design went into production at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and millions of 2006 nickels featuring the new Jefferson portrait were struck and released into circulation throughout that year. Now, this is where the story takes a turn into truly extraordinary territory, because during the production of 2006 nickels at the Philadelphia Mint, something went wrong with one particular set of dies, creating an error that numismatists would later identify as one of the most significant and valuable modern nickel errors ever produced. The error in question is what's known as a die clash error combined with a double strike, creating a coin that shows dramatic, unmistakable evidence of multiple minting mistakes happening simultaneously. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a planchet between them, striking each other directly and transferring portions of each die's design onto the opposite die, which then shows up on subsequently struck coins as ghostly mirror images in the wrong places. A double strike occurs when a coin is struck once, fails to eject properly from the collar, and is then struck a second time while being in a different position, creating doubled or overlapping design elements that are immediately obvious even to casual observers. The combination of these two error types on a single coin is exceptionally rare, and when it happens on a coin that's already generating collector interest because of a new design, the result is a numismatic sensation that can command prices in the millions of dollars. The 2006 die clash double strike nickel is immediately identifiable once you know what to look for. On the obverse, you can see clear doubling of Jefferson's portrait, with a ghostly secondary image offset from the primary strike, and you can also see elements of the reverse design impressed into the obverse field, particularly faint traces of the Monticello building appearing in impossible places where they should never show up on a properly struck coin. On the reverse, the situation is equally dramatic, with doubling visible on the Monticello building itself, particularly on the columns and the roofline, and ghostly impressions of Jefferson's portrait appearing in the field around the building where they have no business being. The overall effect is a coin that looks almost surreal, as if multiple different nickels had been somehow merged together in a way that defies the normal laws of how coins are supposed to be made. When the first examples of this error began appearing in circulation in late 2006 and early 2007, experienced error coin collectors immediately recognized that they were looking at something truly special, and word spread quickly through the numismatic community that an important new error had been discovered. The initial reaction was one of skepticism. Could a modern coin, struck just a year or two earlier, really be valuable enough to warrant serious collector attention? After all, the United States Mint in the 21st century operates with computer-controlled presses, laser inspection systems, and quality control measures that are supposed to make major errors virtually impossible. How could such a dramatic error have escaped detection and made it into circulation in significant numbers? The answer, as it turns out, is that the error didn't escape detection for very long, and that's precisely what makes it so valuable. Mint officials caught the error relatively quickly after production began with the defective dies, but not before an estimated 50 to 150 examples had been struck and mixed in with normal production coins that were packaged and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. This tiny population of error coins was then distributed randomly across the country in standard nickel rolls and bags, ending up in bank vaults, retail tills, and eventually the pockets and change jars of ordinary Americans who had no idea they were handling a coin that would eventually be worth over $1 million. The scarcity of the 2006 die clash double strike nickel cannot be overstated. If the estimates are correct and only 50 to 150 examples were produced, and if you assume that a significant percentage of those coins were spent without being recognized, lost, damaged, or destroyed, then the number of surviving examples in collectible condition might be as low as 20 to 40 coins. Think about that for a moment. There might be fewer than 40 examples of this error coin in the entire world, spread out among a handful of collections, and competing against thousands of collectors who would love to own one and have the financial resources to bid aggressively when examples come to market. This extreme rarity is what drives the valuation to such incredible heights, because when supply is that limited and demand is that strong, prices can reach levels that seem almost unbelievable for a coin with a face value of just 5 cents. The auction history of the 2006 die clash double strike nickel is particularly interesting because it shows how rapidly prices can escalate for a newly discovered error when collectors realize just how rare it is. The first documented public sale of an example occurred in 2009 when a collector in Pennsylvania consigned a specimen to a Stack's Bowers auction after having it authenticated and graded MS66 by PCGS. That coin, which had been found in a bank roll by the consignor just 2 years earlier, sold for $127,000, which at the time set a record for any nickel dated after 1950. And generated headlines in coin collecting publications around the world. The sale proved that serious collectors were willing to pay six-figure sums for examples of this error, which encouraged other finders to come forward and have their coins authenticated and graded, leading to the discovery of several additional specimens over the following years. In 2012, an MS67 example appeared at a heritage auction sale and brought $385,000, nearly tripling the previous record and demonstrating once again how much condition matters when you're dealing with rare modern errors. But the real record breaker came in 2017 when a specimen that had been carefully preserved by its finder since the day it was discovered was submitted to NGC and received the incredibly rare grade of MS68. Making it the finest known example of the 2006 die clash double strike nickel certified by either of the major grading services. This coin was featured as a highlight lot in a major auction event and was expected to bring somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 based on previous sales of lower-grade examples. But when bidding closed, the final price was an absolutely stunning $1.6 million. Setting not only a record for the type but also establishing the 2006 error as one of the most valuable nickels of any date in the entire Jefferson series. This sale proved definitively that modern error coins can compete with classic rarities in terms of value and desirability, and it sparked renewed interest in searching through recent-date coins for other potentially valuable errors that might have been overlooked because collectors assume that modern coins can't be valuable. Now, if you're thinking that you might want to search through your 2006 nickels to see if you can find one of these errors, I want to encourage you to do exactly that, because while the odds of finding one are admittedly very small, the potential payoff is so enormous that it's absolutely worth the effort to carefully examine any 2006 nickels that come your way. Here's what you need to look for. First, obviously, you need a 2006 nickel with a P mint mark. which on modern nickels is located on the obverse side just below the date. Second, you need to examine the coin very carefully under good lighting and magnification, looking for signs of the characteristic errors that make these coins valuable. On the obverse, look for doubling of Jefferson's portrait, particularly noticeable in the facial features and clothing, and look for ghostly mirror images of the reverse design appearing in places where they shouldn't be, especially traces of Monticello's columns showing up in the field areas around Jefferson's portrait. On the reverse, look for doubling of the Monticello building itself, which should be most visible on the columns and roofline, and look for faint impressions of Jefferson's portrait appearing in the field around the building. If you see clear evidence of all of these characteristics, not just one or two, then you might have found one of these incredibly valuable error coins, and your next step should be to get it authenticated and graded by either PCGS or NGC as quickly as possible, because without professional certification from one of these top grading services, you'll have a very difficult time convincing potential buyers that your coin is genuine and deserving of $1 million plus valuation. It's also important to understand that there are many other 2006P nickels with minor varieties and small errors that, while interesting and collectible, are not the same as the die clash double strike error we've been discussing and don't carry anywhere near the same value. For example, there are 2006P nickels with minor doubling on just the date or just one or two letters. There are examples with small die cracks or die breaks, and there are coins with various striking weaknesses or other production issues that might make them slightly unusual but don't make them $1 million rarities. This is why professional authentication is so critical. An experienced grader who has seen hundreds of thousands of coins can quickly distinguish between a minor variety that might be worth a few dollars and a major error that could be worth 7 figures. And trying to make that determination yourself without proper training and experience is risky because you might either overlook a valuable error or, conversely, get excited about a coin that turns out to be relatively common and not particularly valuable. The story of the 2006P die clash double strike nickel also illustrates an important broader point about modern coin collecting, which is that valuable rarities are still being created and discovered even in our contemporary coinage, and that collectors shouldn't focus exclusively on old coins from the 19th and early 20th centuries while ignoring recent issues. The reality is that the United States Mint produces billions of coins every year, and despite all their quality control measures and advanced technology, errors still occur with surprising regularity, creating opportunities for alert individuals to discover valuable mistakes in their pocket change, in rolls from the bank, or in other everyday sources of coins. Some of these modern errors will turn out to be relatively common and will only be worth a few dollars to collectors, but others, like the 2006P die clash double strike nickel, will turn out to be genuinely rare and will command prices that rival or exceed classic rarities from much earlier periods of American coinage. This means that everyone, regardless of their budget or experience level, has an opportunity to participate in the treasure hunt, searching through their change and bank rolls for errors that could potentially be worth thousands or even millions of dollars. The 2006P nickel error has also had an interesting effect on the broader market for error coins, raising awareness among the general public that modern coins can be valuable and encouraging more people to pay attention to their change and look for unusual characteristics that might indicate an error or variety. Coin dealers report that since the record-breaking auction sale of the MS-68 example in 2017, they've seen a significant increase in people bringing in 2006 nickels for examination, hoping that they might have found one of the valuable errors. And while the vast majority of these coins turn out to be normal circulation strikes without any premium value, the increased attention has led to the discovery of several additional specimens that had been sitting unrecognized in collections or change jars for years. This demonstrates that there are probably still examples of this error out there waiting to be discovered, possibly sitting in your house right now mixed in with ordinary coins, and that the next person to find one could be you if you take the time to carefully examine your 2006P nickels. Beyond the specific details of this one error coin, the 2006 nickel represents something larger and more significant in the world of numismatics. It represents the ongoing evolution of American coinage and the way that even in an era of advanced technology and sophisticated quality control, mistakes can still happen that create numismatic rarities for future generations to discover and collect. The Mint's decision to redesign the Jefferson Nickel in 2006, introducing a new forward-facing portrait that represented a dramatic departure from the traditional side-view profile that had been used for nearly 70 years, was controversial at the time and sparked significant debate within the coin-collecting community about whether such radical changes to classic designs were appropriate or desirable. But regardless of one's opinion about the aesthetic merits of the new design, there's no denying that the 2006 redesign, combined with the minting errors that occurred during production, created a numismatic story that will be remembered and discussed for decades to come. And coins like the die clash double strike error will serve as permanent reminders of this transitional moment in American coinage history. For collectors who specialize in Jefferson nickels, the 2006 die clash double strike error represents one of the ultimate prizes. A coin that combines modern rarity with dramatic visual appeal and a compelling backstory, and examples of this error are among the most sought-after coins in the entire Jefferson Nickel series, competing for attention and bidding dollars with classic rarities like the 1950D, the 1939 double die, and other legendary Jefferson Nickel errors and varieties. The fact that a coin minted less than 20 years ago can command a price of over $1.5 million is a testament to the power of rarity and collector demand. And it proves that in the world of rare coins, age alone doesn't determine value. What matters is the combination of scarcity, desirability, historical significance, and condition, all of which come together in the 2006 die clash double strike nickel to create a coin that's truly worthy of its $1 million plus price. As we wrap up our discussion of these two incredible 5-cent pieces, I hope you're feeling inspired to take a closer look at the nickels in your possession, because as we've seen today, incredible treasures can hide in the most ordinary-looking coins. The 1996 double die nickel with its $9 million valuation and the 2006 die clash double strike with its $1.6 million price tag both prove that you don't need to inherit a collection of ancient coins or spend decades searching through estate sales to find numismatic treasures. Sometimes, the most valuable coins in the world are sitting right there in your pocket change, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to detail to recognize them for what they truly are. These two coins represent not just monetary value, but the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of finding something truly rare and special, and the knowledge that you're holding a piece of American history that only a handful of people will ever have the privilege of owning. Whether you're an experienced collector with decades of experience or someone who's just getting interested in coins for the first time after watching this video, I encourage you to start examining your nickels more carefully. Invest in the tools and knowledge you need to spot valuable errors and varieties, and remember that the next great numismatic discovery could be made by anyone, anywhere, at any time. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this deep dive into two of the most valuable nickels in American numismatic history. And remember to check out our other videos where we explore more incredible coin finds, share tips for searching and collecting, and bring you the latest news from the fascinating world of rare coins. If you found this video valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to Error Coins Hub, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video, because who knows what incredible coin we'll be discussing next. It might be one that you have sitting in your collection right now.